Welcome to today's webinar entitled Redefining Career Paths to Support Your IT Talent in a Digital Age. We're going to help you chart the course for a new employee experience. My name is Linda Janak. I am the President and CEO of TalentGuard, and I am pleased to have with me here today David Shaw. Hey, David, why don't you say hello?
Hi, Linda. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And David and I have been doing some work together on jobs and skills and competencies, talent frameworks, SWOTs and insights, and we're going to share more about that as we go through the presentation. Today, what David and I will focus on are three core learning outcomes. One, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to create a compelling employee experience in your organization. We're going to talk about the disruption that's happening in the information technology industry with respect to career paths and career development opportunities. And then we're going to share how we have mapped the new employee career experience to help organizations improve engagement and improve retention. For decades, organizations have been completely focused on the voice of the customer, and those organizations have transformed their processes to deliver an unparalleled customer experience. This has resulted in huge benefits for buyers and sellers. There's evidence that if we start thinking about the employee experience in the same way that we've thought about the customer experience, that we can have similar benefits for employees and for the organization. So organizations today are really starting to think about new ways of listening to how employees want to express their preferences, their expectations and aspirations, with the goal of truly increasing job satisfaction and employee engagement. Now, the presentation today covers both the organizational best practices needed to support a seamless employee experience and the technology needed to power that experience in the digital age. So what makes a compelling employee experience? Well, IBM conducted a study and found that three spheres make up the transformative experience. The first one being work. The truth is that employees really are not happy at work. Employees feel their skills are underutilized, and managers feel they don't have the right skills to grow their team. So employees need better career opportunities. They have to have better work-based connections. We have to truly enable the mentor-mentee relationship, and we have to give career development that is more prescriptive. So that's the first sphere. The second is all about the social experience. There are so many darn systems that employees need to use to make an impact at work. Very few of these systems help the employee focus on their career. Their interactions with tools and the social platforms used to accomplish work and build a career journey is needed more than ever. We're seeing it in every type of employee engagement survey. So if we can truly get the right tools in place, these employees have proven to go the extra mile at work, to go above and beyond what is expected of them to create a more competitive environment. And then the third component is more physical in nature, or the culture with which the employee operates in. They have to be able to engage in a culture that values career development and one that creates a career coaching culture from the top down. These three together can truly increase the benefits within an organization. So let's talk a little bit about the state of the nation. Today's career experience fails employers and employees. From this chart alone, we can see here that 75% of organizations indicate that they have a capability gap, and they will have one over the next 3 years. Over to the right, if we look at the employees' perspective, they are dissatisfied because they feel that they are being underutilized at work. They feel that there are no career development opportunities. They've been sold on the dream when they join an organization, but that dream has not come to fruition with respect to helping the employee navigate and develop skills beyond the current job that they've been hired for. David, do you want to add a few points here as well?
Absolutely. We're seeing this over and over again, and that pointed back to the earlier study that came from the IBM Institute of Business Value you mentioned earlier. And so this piece that you're seeing here from both employers and employees points to a couple things. Number one is the employees don't feel that their skills are being identified that they've done in their career and recognized for the proficiency level of those skills. Number two, they haven't had the skills documented for their existing jobs, and employers haven't mapped those jobs to say, here's the required skills we want you to have. And third, we're seeing that the learning platforms that are typically available to employees are just basically learning delivery. They're not really organized around employee development plans, career pathing options, and so there's frustration on both sides, but a lot of it emanates from the basis of what's required for a job and what do I need to do to develop my skills for that job.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, right on the head there. Now, what we see, David, is that companies typically have many different types of career development opportunities for employees. The challenge is that employees are struggling to uncover those opportunities in an easy way. And I love this slide because it really does show why employees are not having a great career experience. Employees have offered what I call a buffet of career development programs. So they're offering forums for employees to, uncover opportunities. They have Facebook pages where they're promoting their internal moves. They have internal job boards. They have career fairs. You meet with your manager. They have career days. They have an LMS where they're serving up various different learning resources that employees can search through this catalog and, figure out what they want to engage in. But the challenge is at every step of the way, there's a litany of barriers. And the barrier is that, no matter how many times they go and they access this information, the whole goal is to figure out how to apply for that next job. And as you know and I know, it doesn't matter if you're internal or external, employees feel that those wasted efforts, those are wasted efforts. They're not that application that they're applying for or whatever mechanism it is that they're using to apply internally is going into a dead zone. That's why I say kind of over to the right here. All that effort goes into some dead zone where the employee has no feedback on whether somebody knew that they applied for the job. There's no feedback mechanism. Therefore, they're rarely moving, whether it's up, across, or down in the organization in a streamlined way. So the experience is disjointed, it's haphazard, it lacks transparency, and it's difficult to navigate from one opportunity to the next. Now, the other challenge that we have is that employees are truly not taught how to manage their career strategically. We don't teach it in college. When employees join the workforce, we don't teach them how to be strategic about navigating internally. So there's a problem on both ends, and we need the organization to have a certain level of structure, and we need to teach the employee at least some basic fundamentals on how to manage their own career for it to be successful. Now, the other issue is that organizations and employees have been solely focused on the concept of jobs, that's what we think of whenever we're thinking about our career. Organizations have built traditional promotional ladders with formal job bands and pay grades, and employees are expected to move up those ladders. The problem, though, that I've seen being a career coach for so many years is sometimes those employees do not want to move up the ladder, but they must in order to get that next pay increase or in order to relocate because they want to live somewhere else. And if they don't move up that ladder, guess what, y'all? It's up or out sometimes. And that structure is not holding in this current decade. So if you really think about this, and not a lot of people think about this in a strategic way, on average, a person makes 7 career moves over their lifespan. So every time one of your employees wants to investigate a career in your company, they have to navigate through the litany of disjointed touch points that I presented earlier. Guess what? They get sick of it. So what do? They go on LinkedIn or they go on Indeed.com and they just look for another opportunity because it's easier. Now, it's frustrating. And, you've been there, David, I've been there. The career experience is not employee-centric. It's employer-centric with advancement up. Moving employees up the ladder, it doesn't necessarily deliver value to the business. So how do we disrupt what's currently happening? How can we move away from that defunct career ladder to completely transform how employees holistically develop and grow in a natural way. Now, we've identified 4 factors that are disrupting the traditional IT career path. The first one being innovation, right? Critical skills are changing every 2 years, and employees are not being developed to keep pace with that change. It's a big job. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest complaints among IT and HR leaders is the amount of time they spend on creating and updating job descriptions to keep pace with change. It takes a tremendous amount of effort. David, talk to that. I mean, you hear this every day.
Every day. And actually the biggest thing I hear is that employees hear that what they interacted with either their HR team or their leader is they were just given a job description, and that doesn't tell them what's required for the next job or what they could look at in their existing job description. Can I develop my skills in the current job I'm in and maybe broaden what I can do? Where can I add value? And is there anyone recognizing, especially in IT, the skills I have that could help the team? They want to share knowledge. The IT groups in general, they're best practice people, they're technicians, they're tweakers, and they want to find ways to say, oh, I know who that person is, our best .NET programmer, who's the best database administrator, or who knows that application system. And all these points you've got here tie into that, is that people want to know where they're at, where they need to go, not just a job ladder, but could I get other options within the same job I'm in or job family I'm in.
Absolutely. Excellent points. Yeah, and then that leads us right into the strategic transparency. Organizations know they need to develop talent, but what we also know, managers, I know you're on the line, that we hoard our talent. Sometimes we hoard those employees because they're so good and we can't live without them. Managers are so focused on executing the operational responsibilities that they barely have time to coach those employees even when they're hoarding them. So we have to move beyond that to a model that develops employees to the fullest potential. Execution, right? With the onset of all these new technologies that we have, the leaders are lacking skills they need to perform and compete in the digital age. We're going to talk more about that in just a second. So how do we bring talent in or develop talent internally to keep pace with change, not only with what we have to do to execute today? And then there's a talent misalignment, right? The latest stat that I saw was organizations have tons of job opportunities, but on average, only 30% or so are filled by internal candidates. I know that we can do a much better job of helping you improve this number internally in your organization. And I love this slide. It just helps me visualize everything that I want to say about this one presentation. If we combined all of those forces together that David and I just mentioned, it would look something like the digital iceberg. You as an IT leader are stuck between digital transformation. You are dealing with part of the iceberg underwater that has to deal with your existing system infrastructures and your technology architecture. And you're having to move in a new direction based on your business mandate or your company's strategy, where you now have to focus on business analytics and cybersecurity and cloud computing. All those require different skill set for business transformation. In addition to that, your CEO is probably relying more on you to start driving more revenue in the forefront of the organization. So what are you forced to do? Well, you need to start realigning and aligning your talent to meet those business mandates. So it's a struggle. And it's a struggle that TalentGuard and IBM have come together to help you compete in. Now, if we start looking at what transformation is starting to happen as a result of these forces, well, they've had to make changes to the internal career development programs. The current trends are seeing what we call longer runs and steeper rises. What that really means is that employees, because we also have flatter org structures, employees are staying in their role 30% longer. Well, what does that do? Well, it limits their opportunity for growth. It limits the rate with which they can develop new skills or responsibilities. You may probably be seeing this in your own company. And guess what? Employees are getting antsy. On the other side, employees are being promoted due to rapid growth, or because they're flatter organizations, they might be moving from a manager position to a VP position overnight. And guess what? they're not ready to perform at a visionary level, at a leadership level. As a matter of fact, what we found is that 46% of people who are having these rapid rises are underperforming. And that is causing significant problems for organization, because guess what? When you underperform, instead of developing those employees to perform up to the level that is expected, if those expectations are even made known, they're leaving the organization. So it's putting you in a cycle that is just unstoppable. Companies need to create career touchpoints that focus on capabilities or experience-based development. What I like about this slide is that I really start thinking about that companies need to structure based on the career experience, right? So in one of our client engagements, we overhauled their entire career strategy. We looked at their existing IT job framework to evaluate how many jobs shared the same skill. Guess what? That was not easy, because each job, some had a job description, some had tasks, some had responsibilities, some had competencies, even within the same organization. It was very, very difficult. But when we got to the point where we had 20 or 30 capabilities each, both like technical, foundational, and certification, what we found that as we had these job families, say the, cloud computing, data management, business analytics, and then we had, 16 to 20 to 30 different jobs, what we found was that when we looked at it from a skill perspective, there were 28 skills that were shared across all those different job roles. And that was a key insight that we gained. And now that we have that key insight, we could start to think about, well, how do we as an organization start to develop for skill instead of just a specific job role? And that was a real eye-opener for us. But guess what? Because we didn't have any framework to start with, it took us a very long time to get to the point where we had a structure that we could even start to begin a career development program. And we needed to figure out how to harness bringing both the content together and the career experience together as the foundation to be able to begin career pathing. And in a nutshell, what I like about this slide is moving from that career ladder on the left to a pattern and a footprint that starts with thinking about from the bottom up, what are the lowest level skills that are shared across many roles, and how can we start developing people in the area of like critical thinking and systems thinking, and then moving them around the lattice, up and across and down to focus on skills that are required at the higher levels of the organization, where the IT leader can pick and choose where to move people based on a project or based on an initiative or a committee, and use certain employees to focus on those items first and foremost rather than an employee moving in a specific job. David, you've seen this as well, yes?
Oh, all the time, but I think the net of everything you said is the word down near the bottom of the slide, personalized. I think that's what employees want. They want something specific to them. And the analogy I can make in healthcare is like in cancer treatment. If somebody wants a treatment plan, they want it personalized. They just don't want a generic one thing fits somebody, because cancer is serious. In this case, their career is serious. And they want to know that there's personalized options and things that they can review on their own at times, with their manager at times. But if they make it personalized, then they feel they're engaged, and that makes it the last 2 points of authentic and responsive. But it has to be personalized.
Love it. Absolutely. Thank you. So IBM and TalentGuard have partnered to deliver an integrated solution that I believe creates the ultimate career experience for employees, for managers, and for the organization. And as we studied those three spheres that we talked about earlier that make up the extraordinary employee experience, 5 best practices guided us in designing a solution that would change the way we serve and take care of our employees. And these best practices include personalization, transparency, simplicity, authenticity, and responsiveness. And I'm going to explore these in greater detail. From a personalization perspective, what we needed to do was to create a fit between the capabilities of the employee and the needs of the organization to serve up a personalized experience. And the way that we took care of this, right, is actually what I would say is how can you take care of employees if you know nothing about them other than their name and their badge number and who they report to? We have to take it 10 steps further than that. So the foundation of any employee experience lies with personalization. And in order to deliver a personalized experience, you need to offer many touch points to learn as much as you can from the moment you hire that individual. So how do we do that? Well, how we do that is we give employees an assessment or many assessments. And I'm not talking about the kind of assessments that you give an employee, they take it as a team building experience and then it sits in a drawer never to be revisited again. We need to give employees something where they can express and share their skills, their values, their experiences, their aspirations, where they can show their personality. We can figure out what motivates them, and we need to do it in real time. And by real time, it's not just one assessment. It's something that they can work on a continuous basis. They can add to it. Their manager can add to it. And others can add to that employee's data as well. Now, what if managers could access that data with a click of a button and could be given insights that help them coach employees based on their talent profiles? Well, guess what? Today, TalentGuard has made that possible. Instead of offering these disjointed methods of assessment that provide very little insight into an employee's true talent, what if we could change the game? What if we could move from a subjective assessment to a more objective assessment of employee skills? And I know you know what I'm referring to. Let's take LinkedIn as an example. I tag a skill on my profile and it shows up. People are starting to endorse me. Does this mean that I'm profoundly awesome at this skill? Maybe, maybe not. Most of the people that are endorsing me have little insight into whether or not I'm actually capable of performing in that skill at a high level. In order to know if I'm truly capable of performing at a high level, we first have to have a clear definition of what that skill means. Because it's going to mean something to you, it's going to mean something different to David, and it's going to mean something to me. So in this example above, if I'm talking about knowledge of an organization, I need to be able to describe what that means. In addition to that, I need to be able to enable the employee to know whether they're demonstrating behaviors in support of that description. So being able to serve up what I call indicators or behaviors at various different levels, whether it's a novice level or an expert level, and enabling individuals to know where they fit is an important first step, right? However, even as I'm assessing my own self, we know that it's still subjective. So if I make that information, my assessments, my data, accessible and transparent and social, I can start to allow employees to do many things. The first thing you can do as an IT leader is you can show Abigail, as an example, that you expect her to be at an advanced level with HTML. And you know that because you can set a target. And then what Abigail can see is that she can perform higher than what you expect her to perform in that level. So there's a form of transparency that you cannot deliver to employees today. Now, we talked a little bit about the credibility factor. How do we move it from an employee just giving a self-assessment to a manager giving us an assessment, right? I call that the 180. Well, what organizations have done in the past is they've allowed 360 reviews. But guess what? You take a 360 review, it doesn't add to your talent profile, it sits in a drawer, and we can do nothing with it. And most 360 reviews focus sometimes on leadership. It doesn't focus on employees and other people endorsing you for the skills of your job and beyond. So TalentGuard wanted to take it one step further and make it more credible. So what did we do? Well, we integrated to IBM's assessment platform. This enabled us to serve up deeper skills assessment to quote-unquote test whether or not somebody was truly active or knows how to code in C++, for example. And now what we've done is instead of it saying 360, we can add another level that basically is something like prove it in real time. And if I actually want to go look at that test to see, what did they get? Did they fly it with colors or fall under the radar? I can do that. This level of credibility takes the guesswork out of knowing which employees possess specific skills. What it really does is it helps us know who matters. It helps us know who matters when we need to make decisions on what employees are going to be staffed on certain projects, as an example. David, any thoughts there?
I think what you're hitting on is the big pieces we're seeing, and it ties to the earlier slide you had, which is number one, employees want to have what are the measures you're going to give me, what things do you want required for a job, we call those skills, and the metrics of those measures are the proficiencies. So if you say, here's what we're going to be looking at, and you may have, for an example, a given job, 10 to 15 critical skills for that job, then great, you see the name of the skill, how are you measuring me on that? We have the behaviors already written out that TalentGuard's taken advantage of, but that way the employee sees it, the manager sees it, and that gives the baseline of data that the employee then can start using to look at those career and skill development options that you're describing here. So it really is an empowerment, again, back to that personalized self-service approach.
Absolutely. So that brings up the topic of transparency. Now, in transparency, what I'm really referring to here is improving the visibility and portability of capabilities across the organization for both the employee and the employer. And I'm going to ask David to share a little bit about how we can help employees better understand and managers better understand and help the organization better deliver on transparency for the organization. David?
Thank you. Basically, the IBM Talent Frameworks is a pre-built library of job information. It includes best practices and measures that we've just been talking about. And what that describes, at the left, you'll see each of those jobs we call a success profile, because we've already defined what are the skills required for it, and that includes leadership skills, shared skills, and the technical skills for a given job. So an employee and a manager know what's required to be successful at that job. We have linked that to the skills required for that job, and you can also extend that job record to include certification, preferences. They may have a certain number of years of experience on it, or maybe even some managerial experience. All that you can harness together in one place, and then linked to each of those skills, we've included 5 pieces of data that TalentGuard's taken advantage of. The behaviors to measure proficiency, learning materials for developing content around and deploying content for that skill to improve learning and skill development, SMART goals, which follow a percentage of achievement over a given time frame for goals, and coaching tips, that's for managers to help develop the employee and give them a guide to explore things with the employee, and finally, interview questions. These interview questions, just like the other 4 points I just mentioned above, are skill-specific. So the interview questions can be used by existing employees to be primed on what you might be asked about in this skill or this area for a new job or a new area of skill development. But the interview questions can also be used by the applicant tracking systems that most clients have to make their qualifications of new candidates even more effective. And finally, the points that we described is all these data points are vendor agnostic. They can support your business and HR processes, and almost every major application out there we've worked with and have that data loaded into those systems.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. So what we're saying is that you need a framework that you can start with when you're starting to think about your career development initiatives. Now, some of you already have a talent framework built out, but a lot of companies do not. For those that already have a framework, well, guess what? You have a solid foundation to begin with. And for those that don't, you don't have to build it. TalentGuard has embedded IBM's entire library in our system, and the IT framework is one of the most popular ones. And that is the foundation that's powering, whether you have your own or whether you're using IBM's, it starts that great foundation to build on the employee experience. Now, David, maybe you can talk a little bit more at length at what that framework looks like.
Mm-hmm. So the framework is, in fact, the structure of every single job has the same, lack of a better word in IT words, we would call that data model. It has the same layout, the same structure. So you literally can compare one job to another job in Excel or use tools like TalentGuard to compare and contrast different jobs with those skills in that job. But we make sure each job is consistent, has the same data structure. The data is different by job, but in this case, the record that you've got on the screen is one of our libraries. We have 20 different libraries. This one is on IT jobs, and we have a number of job families already pre-built in the library. You can see a number of those in the large box on the left, and then we've added 3 new job families. As you can see down there, business analytics, big data computer, mobile computing. We already have several cybersecurity jobs. We're also going to be releasing a new cybersecurity job family very shortly. But it will still follow the same structures as any other job. And so if you're looking for things for your organization, this is IT jobs for this discussion today. But we also have industry jobs, banking, manufacturing, construction, oil and gas, nuclear energy, etc. And each of those jobs as an industry, go along and complement this particular one you're seeing on the screen for IT jobs. So if you've got an area, let TalentGuard and IBM know. We can research what jobs you're looking at, where you're at, but it is the largest library in the world of jobs and skill definitions.
Yep, and the reason why we talk about this and spend time on it is that one of the things TalentGuard hears often is, we want to do this career development program, but it's so hard to get started. We want to give our employees a certain level of information so that they can compare themselves to certain job roles. Well, if you had to build out 414 jobs, which is typical, of a mid-sized or large organization, that's going to take you hundreds and hundreds of hours to do an effective job. Of that. We eliminate that work for you. You can spend 80% of your time developing employees versus 80% of your time developing job roles, which, like we said, are having to be updated year over year. So let's talk next, simplicity. Enabling employees to research and build their career in a simplified way is also key to a positive employee experience. So TalentGuard helps employees efficiently create a career journey in minutes with very little effort. And many companies struggle with the work needed to create those building paths. So what TalentGuard has done, especially with the IBM library, is we have made it simple for employees to get automatic recommendations of potential career paths, of potential job opportunities. Organizations don't have to spend cumbersome time building, here's step 1, here's step 2. And, I've done a lot of work as a consultant building out these visual maps for organizations, and I've built some pretty exhaustive visual maps that are very, very pretty and very expensive. But guess what? Once we get them updated, again, they're outdated, and employees can't act upon them. A piece of paper can't serve up a development option that's interactive. So we wanted to make it easy for the employee to engage in the way that works best for them based on their needs. And one of the things that we've done is we've enabled intuitive path recommendations. I call this the career passport, if you will. It really focuses on employees' end destinations. So one of the things that TalentGuard has done is enable for employees to search for career paths based on where they are today and what that end destination might be. You might call this also career GPS. So as an example, if I'm a UX designer, and I want to become a VP of product management, what TalentGuard is able to do is, do all the algorithms underneath the covers to see what skills are matching based on the employee's recommendations and all that, and then automatically serve up paths that would be most appropriate for that employee. As an example, we could serve up, here's the most common path that people have traversed based on what we know in the industry. We could also have a company-recommended path where the company could say, we do want the employee to go through this particular area, and then we could put reward points on that. We could also serve up what's the best cross-departmental experience. If we need somebody to go through a job rotation, and an employee wants to go through a job rotation because they want to have a broad perspective of the organization, another path might be the most skills gained. So enabling the employee to think about career development in a variety of ways we found to be highly effective. It tells the employee that you can be successful in my organization by following many different paths, not one path to the end role. Another thing that we've done is we've enabled the career canvas. An employee can also build out a custom career path with automatic recommendations. If you think a little bit about Ancestry.com, and if you've ever used that and you're building out your flow in your entire family line, we do it in a very forward-thinking way. As an employee is adding roles of interest, and these roles of interest are being recommended based on your talent profile, they can see why it's being recommended. But not only that, they can be served up tips to help them make decisions about why they might want to or not want to move in that particular role. For example, maybe 75 other people are selecting that path in their career journey. Well, we can tell the employee, hey, this is a competitive role. Many people are vying for this particular role in the organization, right? That's one example. And as our software becomes more proficient in your organization, the tips and the alerts that get served up become more sophisticated. It's learning as we go. So it becomes a really interesting and engaging experience for that employee as they were developing that journey over time. Now, let's talk a little bit about authenticity. How can we make the employee experience authentic? Well, what we've found, and the way that it makes employees feel like it really matters to them, is when we have touch points that focus on coaching, where we're giving feedback to the employee day in and day out, and when they feel like there's some sort of mentoring going on, whether it's from, IBM's automated coaching assistant, or whether it's from a true career coach in the organization, they want those engagements. So we have enabled employees to have that experience built into that career discovery. So a couple of things that we also do. We can serve up realistic time horizons. Now, it doesn't mean that the employee is going to make those transitions exactly at those times, but what it does communicate is that if they put in the effort and do the work, they will have the skills ready for those transitions, right? And that's an important point in thinking about that. So they can close capability gaps. They can see what those gaps are. They can see other individuals in the role. And guess what? And this is the most important thing to me as a career coach, is that being able to see the exact people who have traversed the path that I want. So the person who went from UX designer to manager of the UX team, to director of marketing, to chief information officer, to see somebody who has traversed that in my environment and being able to access them as mentors is the most important thing that employees are looking for. And guess what? TalentGuard system tracks that. Why? Because we track all of your career history. We track all of the skills gained in all of those career transitions, and we can make that as part of your employee's experience. And finally, we can serve up predictive learning plans. Now, it's one thing to be able to show gaps, but how do I fill those gaps? And remember when David said that we can serve up those learning recommendations? Guess what? Here they are. It says you have a gap, and here are 3 or 4 learning opportunities that we can give to you to help you close those gaps. And guess what? It's not just IBM's learning recommendations. We can serve up learning recommendations from your LMS, from a third party, from a university. It is completely open, and it can be any and all of those. And oh, by the way, when the manager is looking at this, guess what we're showing that person? We're showing that manager the coaching tips that are needed to help the employee close the gap in that area, and the manager has access to that insight. Now, what are we doing? We're teaching the managers how to truly be good managers and good career coaches at the same time. So listening to those employees, letting those employees act on the gaps that they have, enabling managers to coach those employees in a very sophisticated way is going to improve that employee experience. David, any thoughts there?
I think you're spot on. It's just the pieces that we always see here is that people want to have not only the information but a guide, some way to get them through this. And that's what we try to provide from the IBM Talent Framework files, and that TalentGuard is empowering here. So that the idea is that, not only does the employee need assistance, but the manager needs assistance, because the manager may be going into skills or areas they've never done before, and there's at least information there to guide the manager on how to interact with the employee. And you specifically talked about things with other third-party data or talking to a learning management system. We've got so many clients that now have leveraged their existing content, from vendors like Skillsoft or in-house developed content, and they've tagged that content now back to the skill level so they can tie it all back together through tools like TalentGuard to say, here's the holistic picture about what you need to do around that skill. And we see that consistently.
You've got it. I could go on and on and on about just this one topic. And, like serving up day-in-the-life videos and how those skills get expressed in that particular work environment, but I could probably bore you to death at the same time. All right, so let's talk about responsiveness. And I am talking about responsiveness in terms of employees' needs, but more so what I'm talking about is how do we as an organization, when we're enabling that employee to have all of these touch points and all of those interactions, how can we make that information important to us as an organization so that we can act on it from a workforce perspective? How can we pull it together to make us more competitive or to get more predictive or even better, to get more prescriptive in how we do things? Well, TalentGuard is in an engagement right now where we are using the IBM Insights powered by Watson to transform the workforce infrastructure for organizations, where we're enabling them to look at their employee data, all the data in TalentGuard, their employee data in much more important ways than we could have in the past. It blew me away just looking at what's possible. And it's helping us now answer questions that we could not have answered previously. For example, what are our core IT capabilities, and are we leveraging them internally? If I look in the future, what might be my capability gaps? The only way that we could do that was to export data from 10, 15 different systems, give all that data to some, IBM or TalentGuard data analysts so that they could crunch those numbers and create all these manual charts for us. So we don't have to do that anymore. Watson has taken the legwork out of all of that and has made it super simple for us to engage in those types of insights. So when we get the data in there and we start to refine the data and we start to think about what the data can serve up, we can start to look at data based on questions. For example, what is the average competency fit by department? What is the top competency? What is the bottom competency, right, from an insights perspective? And then when we start drilling into those insights, what we can then start to do is start to see how IBM Watson starts making predictions about certain data aspects or certain elements within our software. Like how does this data today impact me moving forward, in terms of its people, and then allow me to drill into those people and start taking a deeper look back in TalentGuard on how we can craft those talent plans to meet those workforce development needs. David, want some thoughts on this?
I think you're linking it together very well, which is the idea of doing additional analytic pieces, looking at the picture from completely different vantage points. That gives both the manager and in some cases, if you have the employees doing this, the employee new ways to look at their existing skills and what they've got available to them from a completely different vantage point. And that way you're really leveraging any information that might be available to both the manager and the employee to look at where they can improve. And as you have it here, what's the DNA required for that area? It could be a new area they haven't even thought about. So if I'm going from I've been in IT and now I'm going to look at the communications department. We actually had a client do this. We look at jobs from one area and look at a completely different department, and they wanted to make sure that they had jobs out there, some employees that they wanted to go from one role to like the art department or marketing department. They had jobs out there they could look at, and that was in fact the DNA of those jobs.
Absolutely. And the thing that I absolutely found remarkable is we don't know what we don't know, right, David? So when we were doing this engagement, what I really liked about it was the Cut. Stop, cut. So what I like about this is not only David, we don't know what we don't know, and that's really what it boils down to. So what's amazing with these insights is it automatically serves up different areas that might be interesting to the organization, and we get to see the data in various different ways, in ways that we've never thought of before, to make us think as business leaders about data sets and workforce strategies that we might not have thought of before. And so I just find that super fascinating. And I look forward to continuing more deeper insights in that area as we get more and more data to populate in IBM Watson. Now, focusing on the employee experience, we know it delivers big benefits. David and I have seen various different return on investments from significantly increased employee retention, increased employee engagement scores. We've seen increase in turnover, hiring costs, revenue growth, and we're tracking these over time, right? I think our longest career pathing customer has been with us for 3.5 to 4 years, and year over year, we are seeing their numbers get better and better. So I'm telling you that being a career coach and being a leader of a technology company and being so fortunate to bring these two aspects together in a technology that's delivering real-world benefits is super exciting for me. David, how about you?
Yeah, we're seeing these pieces of all those data points you just went over, from the turnover, the hiring cost, revenue growth, but also what we're finding is what's that effect on productivity? Because if you look at employees, if they don't feel engaged, then they're not going to be as productive, which means you're not going to meet project requirements and delivery requirements. They might get there, begrudgingly, but if they feel like they're engaged and they feel like they're being respected and treated well, they're going to really want to work on projects. And we're finding a big piece of the management side of ROI is making sure they have the right people with the right skills on the right project. Because right now, it's not just who the project leaders are. Does that person with the right skills, because they may have a project team made up of 10 or 15 people, but was there somebody else that had that subject matter expertise they could have assigned to that project? If management doesn't know somebody has that expertise, they can't bring that to bear. So again, that's another piece of ROI that business looks at.
Yeah, you just brought up a point. I've seen that in a lot of consulting organizations where they have to move people around on different projects with different skills, and they just don't understand how to pull from those because they have no visibility in. So yeah, we have seen that as well. That's a good point. Now, ready or not, your organization really needs to start thinking about how to transform your employee experience, right? How can you help employees chart their own career development? How are you as a leader going to change your mind about what skills are desirable? Or how can you actually think about enabling employees to develop skills and not just jobs, right? How can you start to think about the career a little bit differently in your organization? It's going to start with you. You need to be the catalysts of change in your company and lead the charge with enabling this type of experience for employees. And we're here to help you. I mean, that's what we do. We are a full talent management software company. We have an entire suite of offerings. We've only touched upon the career pathing application today, but we have all the other modules in the talent management suite, and we have the talent frameworks integrated. We've got the IBM Watson integrated. We've got the assessments integrated, and we want to help you deliver a global solution for your employees. And we would welcome any questions you have, any thoughts that you want to share with us at this time, and we'll be more than happy to answer those for you. And I want to thank David for being here with me today. He's a great partner. IBM's a great partner, and we look forward to working with you in the future. All right, we have one question. What is the process of implementing the talent frameworks once they are purchased? Well, one, you can get them from TalentGuard, the talent frameworks, and since they're already embedded in our system, what would happen is you would gain access to TalentGuard software, and you would go into the jobs library, And from the jobs library, we would start the process with reviewing the job role, making sure the job titles are what you want them to be. We would edit competencies and experiences if you need that. And then it's a matter of assigning a job role to an employee, and we can launch the system. Does TalentGuard have a place to store and update these frameworks? Yes, as I just mentioned, you do not get the data in Excel. It's already delivered, packaged, and ready to go, which significantly increases your launch time. I think most companies on the TalentGuard system are launching between 30 and 60 days from the time they become a customer to the time they launch with their employee. Let's see, another question. What is the stage for if we want to phase it piece by piece? That's always the biggest question that TalentGuard receives and how we onboard a customer. What I like to throw back to the customer is your rollout is really going to be dependent on your business strategy. Sometimes organizations have very hard to fill roles, and they're constantly having to look outside for people to fill those positions. So if we start with your hard-to-fill roles first, we can create very targeted feeder roles into those hard-to-fill roles so that we can start filling those gaps quickly, whereas other organizations may have high turnover. Let's say high turnover in the IT department or maybe in the customer support department. So we would want to start with the high turnover roles and create what I call companion paths. So if I'm in customer success, instead of moving up the ladder, how can I move into marketing or how can I move into sales so that we can show people that there are ways, not just within customer support, but there are opportunities for you to have shared skills in other departments that can be leveraged immediately. Any other questions? I'll wait just a moment here.
Linda, I've got one I get asked, which I think you can answer, is, you know, if I've got other existing application systems like an HR system or something like that, how well does TalentGuard bolt on and work with other applications?
Excellent question. So TalentGuard has APIs that we can extend that can integrate to, say, an HRIS as an example, and we've done a couple integrations with HRIS systems. We've integrated to a couple different LMS systems, so if they have an LMS in-house, we can serve up the learning experience within an LMS like Bridge is one of our partners. But those would be some examples that I could give. I have another question here. Let's see, with close to 70% of U.S. employees disengaged, how do we help our board members understand both ROI implications, but also how to execute on a cultural program of change? That's a great question, John. Actually, my husband used to work at BMC Software. So that's a great question, and I think it starts with communicating the problem that you're having first. So we got to create a business case for why the board needs to listen, and that usually is going to stem around your attrition. It's going to stem around your employees not being ready. We have to talk about it from your internal perspective, use your internal surveys, bring that together, and then talk about some of the ROI of having systems like this. As David shared with you earlier, I mean, we're seeing significant impacts in, actually, as an example, one of our customers is a large hospitality. And with our tool, they've reduced turnover from almost 36% to 12% in the first 12 months. That's significant. That's a significant ROI. And we're about ready. It's been 12 months, and we're about ready to do the annual survey for engagement on that particular one. But based on the use of the system, I already know the numbers are going to be out of pocket. With another client we have that's in the media space, they've been on the system for 3 years, and what we've seen as a trend is their average turnover with people who are staying in the role 18 months and leaving the organization. This is new hires. And on average, and we don't know how extensive it can be, they've increased the average number in their role, meaning within the organization, in that role, to up to 2 years and 6 months. So we think that's going to be a lot higher, but the longitudinal study is still in place, and that's the longest customer we've had with career paths. If we can demonstrate bits of information like that, and you know what I always say too, John, is pilot. Start with a particular group where you are having issues, and let's focus on the toughest issue first. If we can solve that problem, then you can roll it out to the entire organization. So those are items that TalentGuard can help you with. We have to build those business cases before, and then we can prepare you to present to your board. That's how I would answer that. All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody. I hope you learned some useful information that you can take into your workplace when thinking about your own employee experience and how to increase and improve that so that you can have the kind of engagement and retention that you expect when you're hiring these employees. And I'm open to more questions. You can contact me at any time, and I'm happy to have a chat with you personally. So have an awesome afternoon, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Linda.